I'm now privileged and delighted to introduce the Lucas College and Graduate School of Business commencement speaker, John Baird. John is considered to be one of the premier executive coaches in Silicon Valley, having coached CEOs and founders for over 25 years. John built his career working with the top leaders at companies ranging from early-stage startups to Fortune 500 firms like Apple and Nike, and most recently has worked with companies such as DoorDash and Marketo as a senior partner and board chair at Velocity. John also spent 17 years on the faculty at the San Jose State University College of Business. He directed the MBA program and served as the director of the Institute for Teaching and Learning. He was named Outstanding Professor of the entire university during his time there. And John currently serves on the SJSU Tower Board. Now, John has some insights in how you actually become that superhero, and he's going to share that with you today. So please join me in welcoming John Baird.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate that very much. Hello, everybody. Are you awake and alive? Yes. Congratulations to the class of 2019. How exciting to be here. I spent some wonderful years on the faculty here, and I think my biggest passion as a teacher was being in the classroom talking about leadership. I have a passion for leadership, not only studying it, understanding it, but also practicing it. I think I left San Jose State, which was a big decision in my own life, because I wanted to actually learn more about leadership. I thought it was great to talk about it, to theorize about it, but what was really happening in the leadership world. I took a leave of absence before I actually left San Jose State at Apple. Apple actually bought my time for 1 year. That experience literally changed my life. I really stepped back and thought, I'd really like to be a coach. I'd really like to help people take the practice of leadership and put it into action. So as I thought a little bit about this presentation today, I couldn't help but think the topic I want to talk about is really leadership. And I thought it might be interesting to share in all the people that I've coached throughout the last 20 years, what have I learned about what makes an effective leader? At San Jose State, we expect all of you to lead in every way. Whether you're in a group, whether you're part of a group, whether you're leading it, whether you're a CEO, whether you're the manager, the director, we really develop leadership skills in the College of Business. So what have we learned? What do we know about effective leaders? What makes them successful? Well, Mary has actually tipped the hat on this one a little bit, but I'd like to reframe this, if I could, and say that the effective leaders that I work with operate 80% of their time in their zones of genius. And you say to yourself, what's a zone of genius? It's sort of what the superpowers that Mary talked about. Your zone of genius may be that you are a great problem solver. You're great at being able to look at options and solve problems. Your zone might be that you're very good with numbers. You can really figure out how things work, how it all adds up, the financial side. I work with a lot of leaders where their zone is to figure out what's behind the next corner. I'm doing a lot of work with DoorDash right now, interesting as they think about what's next around their business. You need leaders who think around the corner, who think big about things. You may be good at listening. Listening is an EQ, emotional intelligence skill, very critical to leadership. That may be your zone of genius. Mary talked a little bit about superheroes. I do have my favorites. You probably have yours as well. I particularly like the Captain Marvel series that came out. I love the way Brie Larson did that movie as Carol Danvers. But she uses power for good, but she's also a leader who really didn't want to lead. It's interesting how many leaders that don't want to actually assume the leadership role have all those qualities of humility and leadership that everybody wants to follow. I like that in her. I love the Black Widow because I like martial arts. I have grandchildren that are into martial arts. I like the way she flips and turns and does all those kinds of things. She also has a great sort of understanding for espionage, which I really enjoy. Tony Stark is one of my favorites, interesting because he doesn't have those natural powers. He always finds a way, he has ingenuity, he uses his wealth for the greater good, which I think is interesting. And then I love the Black Panther, mainly because I love the way the Black Panther uses those sort of superhuman senses, very much like in the wild, the real panther. So what are your superpowers? Where's your zone of genius? Where does that reside? How do you figure that out? So in the coaching work that I do, we actually have CEOs and executives create their story. You would be fascinated with the stories. I mean, you probably read the stories about Steve Jobs and others. But every leader has a story. Every one of you in this audience has a story. It's only through our stories that we become really knowledgeable of our zone of genius. Think about that. Stories have peaks and valleys, ups and downs. They have beginnings, they have endings, they have a climax. There's always conflict. There's always characters that are part of the story. Who has been a part of your story on the journey that you've actually been able to move forward as you graduate from San Jose State? I'd like to take a moment and talk about a story that had a great impact on me. And that story was actually with a student that I'm actually mentoring now at San Jose State through the Global Leadership Program, which I love. That program does so much in developing the global skills and the talents of people. This is a student who actually had lots of things go wrong in the early part of his life. There were many, many things that didn't go right. It wasn't a very good upbringing in general, lots of things. He was able to get through that because he had mentors, he had grandparents that really cared and got him through that. And then he was also able to say, I think I need to get structure in my life, I need to get foundation. And so he ended up going to the Army, which was a really good place for him to actually get a solid foundation, a lot of reinforcement. He came back from the Army with lots of confidence, a lot of confidence to do something more, to graduate from San Jose State. And it was interesting how, as he looked back, and I actually had him write his story for me, how much that story had the people in it all the way along that journey. He is now in a very successful job with a Fortune 500 company. He looks back on the fact that he used his story to actually describe why he would be successful to be in that job. If I were to describe one word for this individual, I would say that he just had perseverance. He just was able to stay in the game and do better, and not to replicate what happened in the early part of his life. San Jose State has prepared us in so many ways for that. Your stories are all part of your superpower and your zone of genius. I encourage you to leave today and write your page story. Who are the characters? What were the conflicts? Most stories have challenges in them. We don't develop and grow without challenges. So embrace your story, embrace your zone of genius. The second thing I want you to do with that superpower is to actually embrace the superpower of others. So what have I learned about leaders? You can't do it alone with your own superpower. I do believe in the 80-20 principle. 80% may get you there, but it's that 20% that's really important. I love the new McKinsey study, which says that diversity in groups, diversity in problem solving makes a difference in the ROI. I encourage the leaders that I work with to actually look at the talents of others and bring them in. Diverse groups do much better. I have a client I'm working with right now who has scaled the company. She's done very, very well with it. She's one of those individuals that looks around the corner, visionary, can create the pictures, very compelling storyteller. But one of the feedbacks that came back was that she needed to surround herself with more people who are not like her. We tend, interesting as leaders, and I give this feedback often, I look around the room and say, you all think and act and look alike. Those groups do not do well, so I encourage her to hire someone different. So if you're a visionary and you're out there and you can look at the big picture, you need somebody who can execute. So her sort of default, the area that she needed to work on was to be better at executing, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. So she hired a COO who was actually opposite. The person fit the culture, but it was the exact opposite of her style. Not hiring in her own image, hiring to get the other superpowers to be part of that. San Jose State is wonderful because it allows you to work with a lot of diversity. This is a very diverse campus. You work in teams a lot. This campus is really, and your education has prepared you so well in being able to work with all kinds of challenges and different people. That's really a superpower. So embrace that superpower in other people as well. The last thing I would like to say is we did a study on leadership with a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs, and we asked them as they look back on their lives, what was their biggest regret? Interesting, lots of things came up about family, balance in life, all kinds of things you could think about. But the one thing that really came up was really important was, I wish I would have actually shown more gratitude. Interesting, the word gratitude came up over and over and over again. And so I would probe that a little bit, and I would say to these leaders, and these were leaders of very successful companies who left a lot of legacy in lots of ways, gratitude about what? It's really the people in my life who made a difference. I wish I would have thanked that coach, that teacher, that grandparent, that partner, that spouse, that person who actually changed my life, caused me to move in this direction. I'd like to encourage you to actually think about gratitude, and I have a little something I'd like you to do when you have lunch, when you go out to eat after this occasion. I'd like you to say a thank you, but I'd like to do something right now. I'm going to take my hat off. I'd like you to think about that person or persons who really you need to say gratitude for. You need to say thank you for doing that. So have that person in mind, if you would. Everybody have that person in mind? I'd like you with me to take your hat off, look up into the grandstands, and say thank you to that person on 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Moms, dads, parents, grandparents, thank you so much. Don't forget the gratitude in your life. Thank people in person. Let them know. In summary, know your superpower. Tell your story. Embrace the superpower of others, and don't forget gratitude. It's the intangible that makes a difference in leadership. Thank you so much. Congratulations, class of 2019. Wonderful.